Well, while lovely weather continues over much of the eastern United States, we've got our eyes on disorganized showers and thunderstorms and clouds off the southeast coast and east of the Florida coast. The low is trying to develop there. A lot of questions on the table with this one, so we're going to try to figure this out. And I don't know if we're going to come to a solution tonight, but as always, we try right here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Wednesday, the 20th September 2023, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. They serve the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area, and even beyond, with mulch, topsoil, sand, salt this coming winter, and, of course, if there's a tropical storm in the future, you might want to make sure you got all your ducks in a row, hardware-wise. 631-756-1125. They've got the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest-growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. Whoops, it's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you decide to purchase the weather station or anything else, because they have lots of weather gadgets and gizmos in smart weather fashion, use the coupon code I want a weather station, and for a limited time, instead of getting 10% off, you get
$40 off.
Right, which is more than 10%. It's like 15%.
Yes.
You get to pay the sales tax and you put some money in your pocket at the same time.
That's right.
Yes.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Correct. So,
before we get into this,
yeah.
Can I just show you and everybody online what I'm wearing tonight?
Oh, please do.
You've kidded me more often than not about this.
Really?
And now my sister has gotten into it.
I've kidded you about this? What is that? Oh, the Yes, your mobile rotary telephone, Joe. We all know.
And this phone number, by the way, is the phone number that my sister and I grew up with in the Bronx. SY22138. The SY standing for Sycamore. Sycamore 22138. Now, of course, it's 792 instead of SY2, but there you go.
Right.
So even she knows, she recognizes that I am, somewhat behind the times by wishing that we were all back on rotary phones.
Yep. Well, you could get a rotary phone and then that little, that circle in the middle could be a camera.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Okay, let's get started here by giving a big hello to everybody on the chat board tonight. And David Fuller is the first to hit the tip jar, hitting it earlier. Hitting it early, I should say. Saw the GFS model, says David. Higher dew points for me. I know you must be dancing in the streets with that one. Into Sunday with rain. I'm glad it won't be damp. That's kind of a contradiction how you wrote that. So, but either way, thanks for hitting the tip jar, David. It's most appreciated. So, welcome to those of you who are not on the chat board, those of you who are watching the Joe and Joe Weather Show for the first time, or you watch it every night, but you prefer to lurk in the background, and we totally understand that. Make sure that you have your notifications turned on. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, because the Joe and Joe Weather Show is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35, and, well, maybe we'll pop on Friday or Saturday, depending on what happens with this system that's off the southeast coast. But before we even get to that, another, pretty nice day, pretty much up and down the east coast. I had some clouds today, but I did have a fair amount of sunshine. 48 was my low this morning, Joe, and my high was 72 here in the beautiful North Georgia mountains.
Well, it was a gorgeous day out there today, no question about it. A day that I would call a perfect 10, or a top 10 day, or a pick of the week day. And guess what? We may have a very similar day to that tomorrow. It looks like another gorgeous day coming up, another winter. So all of you have anything planned out of doors, except for those of you who have to go to work or school, looks like another great one coming up.
September's is it September that has the most clear days?
No, it's October.
It is
But we're
October.
leading we're leaning into that as we get toward October, though.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we're still watching that's the system that's going to be developing off the southeast coast. In fact, we might as well go right to it. But I just want to make a point. I saw Steve Lapointe earlier saying that it really doesn't make a difference whether it's tropical, subtropical, or non-tropical. The outcome's going to probably be about the same. And I think that's a really valid point to make here. The fact that it becomes a subtropical system or a tropical system or just stays a cold core system, the weather you're going to get is the weather you're going to get. If you didn't know what was out there, you would think that it would just be a plain old low pressure area. I mean, in my view, at least for areas to the north. Now, it's a little bit different, say, for coastal North and South Carolina because they're going to have the low center get pretty close to them. So it does make a difference with regards to wind and rain, whether it's subtropical or tropical. Uh, so in that area, I think it has a bigger impact. So either way, we're going to watch to see what it does.
Well,
But
you're absolutely correct, except that in the world of news, the world of news media, if this thing were indeed to be named Ophelia, it makes a whole different story. I mean, for example, if it was just a plain old-fashioned storm coming up the eastern seaboard and bringing us some rain, then this system would be relegated to the weather. Oh, well, Lonnie is saying, or Lee is saying it's going to be wet this weekend, or what do you think? And you do the forecast. But if it were to be named Ophelia, even as a subtropical storm, all of a sudden this gets vaulted to the top of the news. And a new tropical system may be heading our way for the weekend. And again, it would be no different than if it didn't have a name. But again, because it has a name, then it needs to be hyped.
it needs to be marketed.
Yes,
That's the kind.
exactly.
That's the kinder word. We need to market
Exactly.
this.
Exactly.
Okay. So we don't market here on the Joe to Joe Weather Show. We just try to, tell it like it is, because it just, we don't get involved too much in the drama. But during today, we have seen a notable increase. Remember the old front from a couple of days ago that moved on through? Well, now it's stalled across the Florida coast. It extends out into the Atlantic, and we've got a fairly large area of clouds and showers that have developed. It's disorganized. You see one area that is out offshore. You see another area that is moving across the eastern Gulf into Florida and about to come out the other side. And a lot of the clouds are blowing from southwest to northeast, so there is a little bit of upper air shear here. So this has got issues with regards to whether conditions are favorable for this to acquire some sort of tropical characteristics, but it might just as well become subtropical, which is not impossible. And it is going to be, there's this system unlike Franklin, Idalia, and Lee, which passed much further to the east, and over Franklin and Idalia did a good job of cooling the waters down so that when Lee hit it, it caused the storm to weaken as it moved northward. In this particular instance, this is all happening along and west of 75 degrees west, which has been untouched by tropical systems, tracks of tropical systems this season. So the ocean there not subject to the same type of upwelling that occurred further offshore, much more shallow there, and it, for the most part, has recovered. Plus, we've got the Gulf Stream too, and that I think is going to wind up being a factor. But I'm still, there's a lot going on here, Joe. You've got this old frontal boundary. You've got the big high to the north, the inverted trough, and the low that's going to develop there. But we also have, there's energy back rotating in parts of Illinois and Missouri. That's sort of part of the equation here. And we've got energy coming into the Pacific Northwest, which is also part of the equation as far as Saturday and Sunday is concerned, because that system, depending on how strong it is, and it does kind of look a little weaker than what was advertised a few days ago, but that system is going to be important in how this thing tracks up the coast. Does it track inland? Does it split in two, where the low center separates from the rain area, the heavy rain area that gets advected out to the northeast? I still think, in spite of what the models did today, it's a fairly tough call at this point for areas in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England and southeastern New England, particularly for the coastal areas. Maybe not as tough a call for areas further west, but I think for right along the coast, it's still problematic from the standpoint of a forecast.
Well, it's interesting that the European gives me, Joe, over this upcoming weekend. The European now gives something like 2/100ths of an inch of rain.
Right.
I'm literally like right on the northern edge. Now the GFS is a little bit more hefty. It gives me about 1/10 of an inch of rain.
Okay.
But meanwhile, the folks over at WPC, and we always show their QPF maps at night
Well, I
on
just
our
happen to
show.
have WPC's 7-day forecast, which for the East, it's really all about, there's nothing after this. So this is a front end loaded map that we have. I just put up on the screen.
Well, over the 24-hour period from Friday 8 p.m. to Saturday at 8 p.m. for my area, the WPC folks are giving or suggesting as much as anywhere from 9/10 of an inch to an inch of rain. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot when you consider that this is a tropical system, and there are going to be some places that probably are going to get 3 to 5 or 4 to 6 inches of rain. But still, they are, I guess, holding out the possibility that we just might see a bit more than what either the GFS or the European is suggesting, and maybe a tip of the hat, maybe, to the NAM and the Canadian models. Both of those models are going whole hog and saying, hey, this thing is going to come straight up the coast, straight through the tri-state area, Saturday into early Sunday, and will be giving us, quite a bit of rainfall, maybe as much as 1 to 2, or even maybe 2 to 3 inches. So maybe they're over at WPC to saying, well, let's not go totally with the European and the GFS just yet, and say,
Right.
well, it ain't going to be a big deal. Giving some credence to the NAM and the Canadian model, and even to a degree the Icon. Although the Icon, the German model, also is showing now a trend more toward the north and east, taking most of the heavier rainfall over Long Island and keeping places north and west of New York City in the rain, but not as much rain. So we'll see.
Yeah, the European, when you look at the European and how it looks on the surface, it's a flat wave. I mean, it really looks like a flat wave, as opposed to the GFS and the Canadian, where it's got a wrapped up low, a totally wrapped up cyclone looking low, and the Icon the same. So it just sort of, it was sort of odd. But I looked at the European today and saw, God, it looks just like a flat wave on a front, and it doesn't really do anything with it. And you know what? It's not. It's plausible. Let's put it that way. It is plausible. I think we're sort of in this place right at the moment where we need to see what exactly is going on off the southeast coast with this. I think that's going to be key ultimately, because if the GFS is right and the Canadian is right, this low develops very quickly. So if that doesn't happen, then yeah, you're going to have a flatter look like the European. Well, you'll probably sit in clouds all weekend and spit out some, a few drops of rain, maybe a little bit more down along the immediate coast, and that would be it. But the WPC map for the total event, Joe, because they're including Sunday in this, has they actually nudged up the 2.5-inch line back northwestward from central New Jersey from 195 south and then to Long Island, kind of touching south coastal Connecticut, and then into southeastern New England. That's where the 2.5-inch line is. The 1.5-inch total precip line is between you and Albany somewhere. So they did keep it fairly robust. I was a little surprised that they didn't pull it back. So I think you touched on their thinking line fairly well. And of course, they are. I'm sure they're lurking in the background tonight, waiting for our get some idea of what we think, but uh, I don't know if they're going to get much wisdom tonight from that respect.
Well, you're absolutely right. The fact is that this system has not even developed completely yet. I mean, in fact, the National Hurricane Center, through 48 hours, which means through 5 o'clock Friday, has less than a 10% chance of forming. It does say that after that, the odds are 40%. And actually now have put a little X off the Carolina coastline with the assumption that that's where it is going to be developing. But the NAM on the 18Z run, the intermediate run, still is showing this system coming straight up and then inland across central North Carolina into central Virginia. And by the time we get to 2 a.m. on Sunday, if you want to believe this, they have a low in western Maryland. Meanwhile, the global models, the European and also the GFS, are holding this down along the immediate coastline. They're bringing one shot of warm air advection moisture toward us, but that is going to be passing the lion's share of the really heavy precip passes off to the south of the New York metropolitan area. And then they finally bring the actual low up, but it remains basically, as you said, a flat wave of low pressure.
Well, it's a shell.
Over the ocean.
When it brings the low up, it's a shell. It's just basically a shell of its former self. Although
Right.
it starts to interact with the upper low, and it does kind of develop a narrow stripe of heavy precip with it. But yeah, it's all about that warm advection that's coming up with the frontal boundary that's shifting northward. That's what makes this kind of an odd situation, because the low in and of itself is going to be sitting in that frontal zone initially, and does it break away? Does it not break away? That's going to have impact here. Chuck Cardillo has skin in the game, Joe, and he and his wife are hoping that we can keep the rain away from him on Saturday up in the Catskills, because his son is getting married on Saturday. And congratulations to your son, his bride, and to the parents. And we'll see what we can do, Chuck. Okay, because you do get priority, Chuck Cardillo and Mrs. Cardillo. You get priority on the show. And I saw that David Fuller decided to hit Super Chat a second time, and unfortunately, did I lose his message? Oh, there it is. He agrees with Chuck. No rain, just hot, humid weather. Oh God. I miss beach weather. David, you sounded like Sal Blandino, but in the other direction now. With Sal, it's not allowed to rain, and with Hugh, it's not allowed to get cold. But I kid. I miss the beach weather. I'm not ready for winter cold weather yet, and 4:30 sunsets. Well, soon enough, we'll be getting rid of this abomination of daylight saving time and going back to standard time. So get ready for those 4:30 sunsets.
Actually, 425 by December the 9th.
Nice. Good way to rub it in, Rayo. Let's look at the 21Z surface map and see what's going on with that. And I'm going to just give this a quick hit here so we get the new map updated. And you can see the front of the wavy stationary boundary starting to get wavy out there with the stationary boundary east of the Florida coast. No low yet that is formed. I was kind of looking at the wind barbs in the northeastern Bahamas. I mean, there's not really. I don't see any south winds anywhere. I see some northeast winds. I see an east wind, but I don't see any kind of southeast wind yet. So give it another 24 hours. In the meantime, nothing but high pressure covering the eastern part of the United States. Keeping things September dry, I think, is a good way to put it. Got a little bit of busier action with weather fronts snaking all around the northern plains and back up into the northwestern part of the U.S., and also a little system down in Texas. The radar tonight, busy in Florida. Joe, we've got some showers and thunderstorms, and one severe thunderstorm warning that has come and gone. And actually, there were special marine warnings. I take it back. But there are some heavier storms inland, south of Orlando, south of I-4, and heading to just northwest of Lake Okeechobee and to the east of Fort Myers. Meanwhile, we've got some downpours moving across northwest Mississippi and western Tennessee. Also seeing some lighter showers up in parts of Illinois and eastern Iowa. Busier out in the west on the radar as we've got some showers and storms in the Dakotas. And also some showers and storms across the central Rockies, down into the southwest, including, looks like there's a thunderstorm not too far from Las Vegas. In fact, there's a flash flood warning up for some spot to the west of Vegas, Joe. And also some showery rains up in parts of Idaho, Oregon, and into Washington state. The Storm Prediction Center, two small areas of marginal risk. One from northeastern Nevada to southwest to northwestern Wyoming. Another in southeast Oklahoma and northeast Texas. Otherwise, all of the east is in good shape except for Florida with the general thunderstorms there. Tomorrow, marginal risk up the western plains. Marginal to slight risk northeast Texas and southeast Oklahoma. And nothing again from Maine down into the Gulf states except right along the coasts of South Carolina and Georgia down to Florida, where they indicate some general thunderstorms. And then we'll go to the next day, and this is Friday into Saturday. Now, we've got slight risk in Nebraska and parts of south central South Dakota and north central Kansas. Marginal to slight risk there, the marginal risk extending into Iowa. But they do have general thunderstorms from southeastern Virginia right along, eastern North Carolina, eastern South Carolina, and then it kind of curls out offshore from there. So this is not, like you mentioned this yesterday about not seeing much in the way of convection out of this. Well, I mean, this doesn't look like it's going to be one of those prolific thunderstorm producers, although when that warm advection comes up, if it comes up the way the models were showing yesterday, that intense area of F-Gen, which, you might want to show those maps again tonight, Joe. In that, if that were to happen, you'd probably get some rumbles of thunder as the rain went by.
General, well, I would say yes, there'd probably be some sort of convection. Whether or not there would be anything noteworthy in terms of possible severe, that's left open to debate, I think.
All right. Well, let's since you mentioned the NAM, we might as well look at it. And the NAM. Now, see, here's the thing. You look at the structure of the low. Just look at the low with respect to the isobars. I mean, it really. I'm going to back it up here. So this is tomorrow morning at 12Z or 8 a.m. Thursday morning, and there's a closed isobar, and suddenly you finally get a low to pop up around lunchtime. There's a 10-12 low with a closed isobar. And then as we go forward, the pressures start to fall. By the time we get to 9 o'clock tomorrow night, Joe, it drops from 1,012 to 1,004. And that's a pretty steady drop. And then if you look at how the radar echoes that the NAM is depicting, you're starting to see that sort of that comma hooking around on the west side. And
right.
Then the low by 8 a.m. Friday morning is down to a 990. What is that? A 6 or a 5? I can't. A 996. It's a fairly wrapped up low. You've got this arm of convection on the northwest side that's trying to come around. And then it actually, it takes that low, Joe, and moves it almost westward toward Myrtle Beach, where it gets to just offshore at 11 p.m. Friday night, and it's a 993, and it's got this wall of rain that moves up into the Delmarva Peninsula to central New Jersey by 2 a.m. in the morning. And, this goes back to yesterday. It's where the models were kind of doing this with more of an inland low. And yeah, if that were to happen, you'd get that arm of moisture. The frontal boundary would break away and push northward, and you see that east-west band that the NAM has of pretty hefty rainfall that comes through during Saturday morning. And then up it goes, and there's your leftover low with not too much, at least going into early Sunday morning. But, it's all the way back into, like you said, western Maryland. I mean, the NAM has I don't know. The NAM got so squirrely last winter. It's hard for me to take it seriously these days.
Well, the NAM got a lot of respect after the 2016 snowstorm, where it was the only model saying New York was going to get 20 to 30 inches of snow, while the global models were saying something like 4 to 8 or 5 to 9 inches. And then in the last minute, the global models agreed with the NAM, and everybody since then has been saying, "What does the NAM say?" Even
Yeah.
though my storm might be like more than 5 days out, the NAM doesn't go any further than 84 hours. It's a North American model, but ever since, it's a model that has its good days and more often than not has its bad days. And I'm thinking right now that this might be one of its bad days.
Could be. Could very. I mean, I'm okay with it when it does through 36, maybe 42 hours, but when it starts to turn it straight west, which look, it's not impossible. It starts to turn it straight westward. That's where I kind of I start to lose it just a little bit. I would think with the way the upper flow is, this thing would want to go more northwest or north-northwest into eastern North Carolina. Bogies Bees, Joe. Bogies Bees just hit super chat saying definitely could use some rain in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Well, gotta hope for a more inland track for you, Bogies Bees, in order to get that. So we've got the NAM. You know what I looked at today, which I haven't looked at since, I don't know, sometime in the winter? I looked at the RGEM, the
Oh, the
Canadian regional model.
regional, yeah,
So let's look at the RGEM, shall we?
surely.
And well, let's see. By Friday morning, it's got 1,005 low, roughly at 31.2 and 76.4. Okay, and then it goes, just sort of wobbles its way northwestward, to northwestward, to where it moves right, you know, just south, moves inland in North Carolina, just southwest of Hatteras is a 991 low, and it's got the wall of rain by Saturday morning to about New York, just north of New York City, with heavy rain in central New Jersey, and then of course it brings up this big arm of heavy rain. That part of it goes northwest, part of it goes to eastern Long Island. Tracks the low straight northward from there into Chesapeake Bay. It still has a fairly wrapped up system, which was kind of interesting to me. It's got the other models kind of weaken it when it gets up here. The RGEM has actually a fairly wrapped up system. It still has like a 97 low in southern Delaware by the time we get to 2 a.m. on Sunday, with the heavy rain from New York City southwestward toward Baltimore. So I mean, uh, is it a likely outcome? Probably not. Is it possible? Yeah, I think we could still leave that option on the table.
But even the regional is doing the same thing as the global models. They are it is suggesting that there's going to be one main mass of rain with the warm air advection that cuts away to the north and east, and then
Right.
brings a second round of rain up with the actual low center about 24 hours later.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that the GFS was showing pretty well yesterday. Brandon Doherty just banged the tip jar. Thank you, Brandon. Most appreciated. By the way, Joe, we've got 68 likes. Thank you for those of you who have hit the like button. If you like the Joe and Joe Weather Show, hit the like button, because Joe and I, we're on for an hour, and we love it when we get over 100 likes. So try your best to get us over 100 likes, please, because if you do, Joe gets to ring his bell.
Yes.
And nothing is more exciting than listening to Joe ringing his bell.
It would be the highlight of my day. Let's put it that way. Today, by the way, Joe, we put away for the season the pool or the pule. we have one of these pools. For 21 years we had a kayak above ground pool, 20 years actually, and finally we had to get rid of it. And the executive producer said, "Oh, but I really want a pool." So we got one of these, giant oval circular pools, but it doesn't stay up all through the year. We put it up in June and we take it down in September.
Like a long-lasting Christmas tree.
Yes, exactly. And we started taking it down on Sunday, no, on Saturday, we started taking it down. Then on Sunday, we had to clean it both inside and out because it had water. And where we set it up, it has sand, and the sand sticks to the sides and the inside of the pool and everything else.
All right.
We actually put it into a box. We folded it up, put it into a box, but then we realized that it was still somewhat dirty and there was still some water lingering. We don't want that. So we decided today, under beautiful blue, this is how, a lot of people, they have, time at home. They like to relax, enjoy the sunshine, everything else like that. No, what we did was, beginning at around 11 o'clock, we unfolded the pool, and then we actually took the vacuum cleaner, and both the shop vac and not the shop vac, but the handheld vacuum cleaner and an old vacuum cleaner, and we vacuumed out all the sand, and we sucked out all the water, and we left it out in the sun, and then we waited until our son got home from work, and the three of us kind of folded the darn thing up, put it in the box, and put all the other. It's all over, Joe.
Yeah, it is.
3 days. 3 days. What do you say sometimes? Those are 3 days I'll never get back.
3 days you'll never get back. Yes, exactly.
Those are 3 days I'll never get back.
Yes. All right, I got the European, the mid-cycle European run is actually running behind today.
And by the way, that rant about the pool,
yes,
actually was enough to get us to 100 likes.
Yeah, but you're at 100. I'm at 99.
All right, I'm at 100 right now.
Okay, so there's probably some Weisenheimer out there that sees it goes to 100, he unlikes it and then likes it back. I do have enough of the European out. See, the European, to me, it has it doesn't it doesn't wrap the low up into the low 990s or 990 millibars. It's like 1,003, 1,002. This is for I'm only out till Friday evening, where the low is sitting at 31.3 and 73.5. So sometimes, the NAM used to love to follow the European, or maybe it was the other way around. The European actually does, interestingly enough, between 48 and 54 hours in that 6-hour time frame. It kind of jumps the low northward and then takes it straight west. So that was something that the NAM showed. So when I get a little bit more of this, I'm going to switch off to the full U.S. view so we can kind of get a better idea of what's going on out in the Atlantic. And these maps, by the way, courtesy of Pivotal Weather.
Interestingly, Pivotal Weather gets the 18Z European before Tropical Tidbits does. There's no knock on Mr. Levy, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Okay, at 6Z on the European now, we've got 1,000 even, Joe. It's a little deeper on this run. Now, this is interesting because, remember I said earlier where the European on the 12Z had this sort of like, it looked like a flat wave that was down there off the southeast coast. It really didn't do much with it. This one's a little more circular, or let's call it at least egg-shaped. And you can see where the breakaway heavy rain is, which is just off the New Jersey and Delaware coast to the southeast. But it's 1,000 millibar low at 60 hours, and it's at 30. It's actually a little southwest of where it was earlier. 30.7 and 77.7. So that's, we've got now till 63 hours. So let's go another one. Well, that heavy rain on the intermediate run of the European gets awfully close to the south shore of Long Island by the time we get to 5 a.m. Saturday, Joe. You'll see it on the screen I know there's a little bit of a lag.
Yes.
We're about, it's running, for some reason it's running 2 minutes behind there, but you'll see it when it comes up. While we're waiting, David Fuller hitting Super Chat. This is, I think, the first time anyone has hit Super Chat three times in one show. Unless he's not aware that he's hit it 3 times in one show, but it's there. Thank you, David.
Well, he hit it twice. He hit it twice on Monday.
Well, he's pulling.
The second time he hit it, it was an apology to me because he said he loves warm, humid, sticky weather. And then I went into a crazy rant about the fact that it's like a jungle outside on my property because everything's growing like crazy because of all the rain and humidity. And he hit it the second time and said, "I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean it.
Right.
So this is 3 times. I think, yeah, you're right. I think the first time we ever had anybody hit
We
it
had
three
three
times in
times
one
in
night.
one show. We've had a few doubles. But he says, "Thank you, Joe, for all you Joes for all you do. I'm pulling a double at work today, so maybe he can. Maybe if he's working overtime, he can afford to hit super chat 3 times. 2 more hours to go. I can't even miss a show. Very good. Well, we're happy you don't miss it. Looking forward to another Rayo rant. All right, I've got out through 66 hours, and the wall of heavy rain is like just like part of it is into central and eastern Long Island on this run. It's a 999 low, way south though, way south. It's at 32. My eyes are just crazy here. 32.2, 77.6. There's a 999 low. They probably would be blowing away across off the North Carolina. Actually, the gradient is fairly tight because there's another high that's because a 1027 high over Lake Superior, and the old high is southeast of Nova Scotia. So you got a fairly tight gradient from southern New Jersey southward. So I imagine there'll probably be at least gales offshore with that if it's as tight as it shows. And now we can go to 65 hours. I'm sorry, 69 hours. Right? So let's see what's that. Yeah, it gets the rain into Long Island. It's got the dark green rain there and along coastal New Jersey. And the low center is still, it's at 32, it's at 999, 32 and a half and, or 32 point, yeah, 32 and a half at 77.4. So it's moving northward toward Wilmington, North Carolina on the European. And then at 72 hours, which just came in. I guess it's all playing. Yeah, it's a really close call here, Joe. It's like there's a sharp cutoff of the rain. You draw a line from, say, Hartford, maybe just, Hartford to Darien to, New York City to about Trenton. There's a sharp cutoff there. North and west, it's like in the wintertime. North and west of that, not a flake, not an ice pellet, nothing. And then over Long Island, southeastern New England.
I'm pivotal whether you can't do what you do on Tropical Tidbits, which is zoom in on the Northeast, can you?
Actually, I could pull the regional map up, so we could do that now that it's gotten that far. So let's do that. So let's go to the regional, Northeast. We'll do that. So let's see, because the rain will be in the box. All right, we'll give it a moment to load here. And,
that's great.
And let's see. All right, so here is, you'll see it on the screen in a moment. So at 66 hours, it's got dark green rain over central and eastern Long Island, and darker but not the darkest dark green in central and south Jersey. The yellows, there's a blob of yellow over Riverhead and West Hampton Beach. So that's at 7 to 8 a.m. Saturday. Hang on, I lost my mouse. Oh, here we go. And then, it's got dark green rain over Long Island, southern Rhode Island into southeastern Massachusetts, and that's kind of where, it's there until about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It starts to pull away.
Look at that. I don't. If I get anything, I might get 4 drops out of this.
Right.
This verifies.
Well, let's see what kind of precip it gives. Just give me a moment here.
You think there might be some snow?
Yeah, right. So, in fact, you know what? Let's go really. Would you like me to go super tight on this, Joe? We can go super tight here.
Oh, and I'd love going super tight.
Yes, I'm sure you do. Let's keep this G-rated, shall we?
Yes.
All right, so let's see what the European precip is. All right, so it gives 3/10 to Yonkers, 4/10 to New York City, 1/2 inch to Long Branch, 6/10 to Toms River, 6/10 to Vineland, 1/10 at Hartford and Waterbury, 7/10 in Norwich, Connecticut, which is in southeast Connecticut, not far from New London, 6/10 at Brentwood. And now if you go over into the Twin Forks, for example, like Riverhead gets 1.22. Out in the Hamptons, it's like 1.3 ish, 1.2, 1.3 ish, and out in the Cape, about an inch at Barnstable. Providence gets 0.8. This is I would imagine this has got to be a little bit more. Well, I could take a look. Let's look at the 12Z just for comparison. Let's look at the 12Z run and see what that gave. And it'll just take a moment for that to come up. Yeah, it gave, on the 12Z, Joe, it gave 1/10 to New York City. And that's where it cuts off. Nothing to Bridgeport. Norwich 1/10, Providence 2/10, 2/10 at Brentwood. So it's wetter. It's about a half an inch wetter and a little bit further north and west with the precip shield. And the other thing I want to look at, too, is why don't we look at the wind? Let's just, for laughs, look at the wind here. Not wind chill. I don't want wind chill. Where is it? We can do the 10 meter. Do the 10 meter wind.
I agree with you, Frank Scalera. If this was a snowstorm, yes, you would be, or many people would be pissed off.
Oh, of course. Well, that's the nature of what we do, is to piss people off.
Well, better to be pissed off, Theo, than to be pissed off.
Let me go look at the 6-hour wind gusts. Maybe that'll help the cause here. Oh, good God. Taking forever for the maps to load. Okay, so this was on the, let's look at the old 72-hour. Let's go to 84-hour. I mean, it's got gusts, Long Branch 39, Toms River 36, Brentwood 33, Yonkers even gusting to 30. This is at 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon. And it's got, 40-knot winds touching, 44-mile-an-hour gusts touching Fire Island and along the New Jersey shore. So that's on the 12Z. So let's look at the 18Z and see what we got with this, which is now out to 90 hours, by the way. So we got the whole
Which is
run.
That's as far as it can go.
What does 90 take us to? Is that to 12Z Sunday?
84 is 3.5 days. And I guess what? It's 18Z, so it's 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, so 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I guess 90 hours is 6 hours plus, I think, Sunday evening.
Yeah, the wind is a little less. This is interesting, is the precip is more, but the wind is a little less. It still has 40-mile-an-hour gusts along the Jersey coast and just off the south shore of Long Island. And I'm just going out to 90 hours. And actually, still kind of breezy going into Sunday morning. Now let's just look at the surface. Let's bring the surface map back up. You know what? This, at the very least, is good practice for the winter time, because I will renew the license for Pivotal Weather, so this way I can show these maps on the air. They get very touchy if you don't pay that license fee.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I would know. I think that would be, it's well worth at least giving them some credit.
Yeah. Now look at this, Joe. 90 hours Sunday morning. It's got dark green rain. Southeastern New England, southern Connecticut, all of Long Island, back to New York City. Northern New Jersey is out of it. Just north and west of you is out of it. It's got heavy rain along the New Jersey coast. It's got the yellow bands of heavy rain. I got to see what this looks like on the wire, just to see where the wider view, just to see where the low is. So let's go to, let's go to the regional. Let's go to the regional mid-Atlantic map. I didn't want that to happen. I'm going to have to do it this way. I accidentally hit a zoom button I didn't want to hit.
And once again, as we pointed out, the NAM, for example, wants to bring this well inland, and by Sunday evening, it's over western Maryland. But it appears, Joe, that this keeps it offshore. In fact, it does. There you go.
Yeah, it's a 999 low at 37.5 and 74.3. So, I mean, it would seem to me, with what's going on to the northwest, is you do have this short wave that's moving through eastern Canada, that It'll probably want to go straight east from here, but it does try to bring back some heavier rains as the low, now wants to move the low north-northeast, a more developed low north-northeast up the coast at least for a while before it probably eventually translates out more to the east, I would think sometime during Sunday afternoon.
So it looks like through the entire weekend, there's going to be a threat. Some of you will get a significant rainfall, or maybe on one of the 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, depending upon where you are. And there are others who will just be sitting like out in the bleachers somewhere with only a little bit of precipitation, and you'll be hearing and watching what's going on for others who are getting hit significantly with wind and rain. It's a little bit, in all, it should be interesting. As I said, over at WPC, they in their forecast, rainfall forecast, have me down for maybe as much as an inch of rain. May still happen. We're still several days away from the event, but from what we're looking at from a few of the global models, the GFS and also the European, that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be for where I am up here, we might get a fraction of that, but not the whole scale, heavy duty stuff. But again, things can change. We'll see.
This is where the guy who draws the little guy with the cap and the pencil that draws the models lulls everybody into this idea, and now he's there drawing the model guidance for the overnight runs. And he says, and this is where he says, "Nah, now you know what? Let's put the low in eastern Pennsylvania someplace and bring that form. In fact, now that we've got them all saying this, let's do that." So we leave we still got the door open in terms of how this is all going to play out. So I think we got another, maybe tomorrow we'll probably get some clarity on this. And I know there are people who seem to think that we should be able to give folks clarity 10 years in advance. It doesn't quite work that way. Just in case you didn't realize that, it doesn't work that way. I have to tell you something, because my weather's on appears, and some of my videos appear on the news app called Newsbreak, and the comments, Joe, are just you rarely get. Every once in a while I'll get somebody that says thank you and says something intelligent, and then the rest is beyond belief, and including it seems that no matter what I do, whatever weather I put on there, somehow it gets to the conversation of climate change, and I just keep it, and I just write back. I said, nowhere in this article is the word climate change. Nowhere in anything I have ever done in the last 10 years has had the words climate and change next to each other. Okay, I do weather forecasting. Okay, that's what I do. That's what I live for. All right. If somebody wants to talk about data that goes back 1,000 years or however they figure it out, that's somebody else's bailiwick. It ain't mine. So anyway, that's my little rant. It's just a little one.
Okay.
And we're already over 100 likes, so don't it's not going to get us that many.
Just to answer Christopedia, who was asking Renato, what is the design on my shirt? And since my sister is now on the chat board, I mentioned this at the very beginning, I'll just show it again, is the fact that she knows, just like you do, Joe, that I live in the past. And this is a rotary phone T-shirt. And in fact, I'm not sure if it's clear enough to see, but the phone number in the middle, SY22138, was our phone number when we lived in Throgs Neck, way back, like 50, 55 years ago. Today
so it was
792.
It wasn't Alexander 4444.
No, it's not Alexander 4444. Dennis Cassia. Thanks a lot. Dennis Cassia says to my sister, "That's the only kind of phone that I could use." Probably, right?
Right. By the way, Christina Peter also. This is another thing. How about when people bring up the president when you talk about the weather? I know it is the most bizarre thing. I'm writing about weather, we're writing about a storm or whatever it is, and somehow they tie it to the president. It's like, Jesus, how do you? I just don't see how the logic in your brain goes from weather to the president. Okay, I don't get that. But I will tell you this, and in all seriousness, and this is really sad. This is really, really sad, Joe. I saw this with Lee, with Adalia especially. Uh, People put up comments along the lines of, "I hope this wipes out Florida. I hope this wipes out Texas." I talking about the potential that this could be that this might possibly turn into a subtropical cyclone. Although in the context of what I wrote, there was nothing dire in there as far as what was going to happen if it did become a subtropical cyclone. I made the point to say that it's just a technicality. If it does, the weather is going to be whatever the weather's going to be. But I mean, I had people saying, well, let's hope it's a big one so it wipes out all of the Northeast. And I just and I shook my head and I'm thinking, I mean, really, is that what you think? Is that what you really think? And then I pointed out in a response to a couple the couple of people that did that today. I said, listen, you better realize that there's somebody out there that's writing the exact same thing about where you live and hoping that something bad happens to you. Okay, so I just find it. I just find the fact that people have so much anger that that they want to see people get wiped out. They want to see misery. They want to see tragedy. That says volumes about the characters of those people who put stuff like that up.
I think about this is a weird analogy or a weird metaphor, but I think about the Poseidon Adventure. You remember that movie with Shelley Winters and Gene Hackman and Ernest Borgnine or whatever. And right after the ship turns over upside down, there's this Gigunda Christmas tree. And this tree could be used to, if you climbed up on the tree, there's like one particular exit that might afford you a chance to maybe find your way out of this. And of course, you've got to watch the whole film. And here's the whole mass of people who are, berating those who are trying to climb up that tree. Especially the guy who played the purser, saying, "We're staying down here. We know a lot more than you folks who are trying to climb that tree. You'll die. You'll do it." And all of a sudden, there's like this Gigunda explosion.
Right.
And the tree falls over. The people who did not climb the tree or did not attempt to use the tree to get out are now scurrying every which way, attempting to push get the tree back up so that they can make their escape as well. And I look at that and I say to myself, for the people who, say, we can keep doing what we're doing. The atmosphere is going to always be there. There's not going to be any problem, and then finally, there may very well come a tipping point, maybe next year or in the next decade or in the next 100 years, where it'll be too late, and then people will suddenly realize that and say, all right, now we have to change our ways. Now we have to stop polluting the air and doing everything else, and it'll be too late. And those are the people who are like on the ship floor and did not want to climb the tree, so to speak. It's a stupid analogy, but
no, listen, it's an analogy that's played. It's an analogy that's played out. Has played out over and over again in the history.
We wait till the last minute, and then it's too late.
It's human nature, especially as you get older. Nobody likes change as you get older.
Oh yeah,
and we
Isaac
can attest
Asimov,
to that.
the great Isaac Asimov, science writer and science fiction.
Oh,
500 of them. He said, the problem in this world is that nobody wants to think long term, far, far ahead to possibly avoid disasters or whatever. The problem is that every human being, or most every human being, only thinks in the short term, over the span of, let's say, next year or two. And they don't have the big picture, and they don't look 50 or 100 years down the road to try to make corrections and changes to avoid disaster. We're only thinking in the short term. But when he says the disaster is suddenly looming up in front of you, that's when they start scurrying around. Everybody says, "Now we got to do something. Come on, we got to," And ultimately, it is too late. And
yep.
That's how it is. So you folks out there who are saying, I hope Florida, gets flooded out, or I hope the Northeast gets, as Joe said.
No, it's even more specific than that. They want people to be wiped out.
Yeah.
Wiped. I mean, just literally mass, mass death to a certain portion of the country. I find that disgusting. I mean, really, it's disgusting. Okay, it really is disgusting to take that sort of attitude. All right, enough of that. By the way, there was like a brief internet hit of some sort, and Joe froze for about a second, and then came back. You might have froze a little, might have froze for you, but everything seems to be working now. Yes, Joseph, everything seems to be working now. So let us go to Briller Jeopardy, shall we? You have to breathe sometime,
All right. I have the questions, I believe, tonight.
Yes.
The Briller Jeopardy questions, which we've been putting off actually for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just real quick. Anthony Sparaccio hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Anthony. He says, I love that shirt, Joe Rayo. As I work in telecom, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So there you go. And the chairman, Scott Briller, saying that Mother Briller loves my rants, or your rants, or both our rants. Thank you, Scott.
All right.
And now it's time for Scott Briller's Briller Jeopardy.
Yes, and here it is. On this Briller Jeopardy tonight, what are the top 10 costliest hurricanes in the United States? The top 10 costliest hurricanes. Now, he does not give the dollar amount.
Okay.
But he does give, along with the name of the hurricane, he does give the year. So,
well, my question is, are the amounts adjusted for inflation? That's the thing. I mean, because that makes a difference in terms of how you would rank them.
I will say this.
I mean, if you do this in nominal dollars, then you're going to come up with a whole different list.
I will say this, that any storm on this list, and there are a couple that go back or date back more than 30 years, to still manage to make it within the top 10.
All right, so maybe they adjusted it for inflation. So Lou Alessi says Katrina and Camille, Joe.
Katrina is on the list. Believe it or not, Camille is not.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. This is one of those things where you need to know where the number was adjusted for inflation or not to be fair. But we'll just go with it. So
Katrina was number one. Well, Katrina was number one, and that dates back to 2005.
Okay. So how about the Great New England Hurricane, as Pat BFD puts up?
No. That's not on the list. That's a little bit too far back. That's 1938, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Again, the inflation question. Matt Howe says Sandy, Harvey, and Maria.
Okay, well, Sandy is on the list. That's number 2, dates back to 2012. Harvey, believe it or not, Harvey is not on the list. And neither, by the way, is Maria. Now, remember, Maria, I believe, made landfall on Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Killed like 3,000 people.
Right.
And I know that Puerto Rico is a commonwealth of the United States, but did not make the list.
Okay. Dennis Cassius says Sandy and Andrew.
Well, Sandy, yes, that's number 2. And Andrew, yes, Dennis, number 3.
All
1992.
Right. Lou Arizio says, well, we don't have Katrina, but he adds Michael and Ivan.
Michael is not on the list, but Ivan is number 5 on the list.
Okay.
And Ivan dates back to 2004.
Patrick Darcy says Ike.
Ike, there you go. We had Andrew at 3 and Ivan at 5. And number 4 in between is Ike at 2008.
Michael McGuire has the Shirley Booth hurricane. Hazel was a really interesting storm. That did a number on Toronto, believe it or not. You talk about, places along the coast getting smashed by tropical systems. But Hazel really did a number in Ontario, in Toronto. But believe it or not on the list. Helen Bertona says Charlie.
Charlie is number 8 on the list from dating back to 2004.
And Michael is...
So far we have, Joe, 6 of the 10.
Okay. How about Michael Azara says Rita?
Rita is number 7. Rita is also the name of that woman who Ralph was making a lot of comments about in the Honeymooners.
Oh, yes, yes. Rich Rothmansky and Maggie P. bring up Ian from last year.
Ian was a good storm. If you like, a lot of destruction or whatever.
I'm sure
who likes that?
I just ranted about people liking the destruction, so you better rephrase it. Rephrase it.
If you're into a storm that causes a lot of destruction, then Ian would have been a good storm to list, but it did not make the top 10.
Ryan Ford. Hi, Ryan. Hurricane Isaac.
Isaac did not make the list. I did mention Asimov, but Isaac is not on the list.
Latex Dreams says, I lost it. Dorian.
Dorian did not make the list.
Leon Probitsky says Wilma.
Wilma. Yes, Wilma was number 6 back in 2005. That was the storm that knocked Al Roker off his feet.
So how many do we have left?
I believe we have just 3 left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, 2 left.
Christinapedia Gloria is definitely not on the list, just so you know. And I don't have the answers, but that really only made, that made landfall as a dying hurricane by the time it hit eastern Long Island. Joe Lopresti says Donna.
Donna? No. Donna did not make the list. I'm going to give you a couple of hints. We have only 2 left. One of them hit in 2004, the other in 1989.
Hugo in 89?
You go. No, I don't go, but you go.
And 2004. I'm trying to think of the storms from the early 2000s. Isabel, Jean.
Only my sister would know this.
Francis.
My sister would know this. It's our father's name. So.
Oh, it's a male name.
Yes.
Okay. Is Lisa still on the chat board? Maybe she could just cheat.
Michael McGuire. Michael McGuire and Rich Rothmansky.
Charlie. I thought somebody said. I thought we said Charlie earlier.
No, I don't think we did.
Yeah, I think we did.
We did?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then you got them all.
Oh, okay. Perfect. And we got 145 likes, which is great. And it's 8:38 p.m. Eastern time. So on that note,
wait a minute.
What?
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So which one did we not get? Katrina, Sandy, Andrew, Ike, Ivan, Wilma, Rita, Charlie. Oh, yes. One left.
There's one left.
There is one left.
All right. Quick hint.
Granny.
I'm sorry. What's the hint?
Granny.
Granny?
Yes.
Irene.
Irene, yes. 2011.
Okay, so for those of you, Rich Rothmansky got it too, and so did Matthew Howe. If you watched the Beverly Hillbillies at any point in your life, then you would have gotten it. It's Irene, the great Irene Ryan, who played Granny. Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned at the top of the chat board, and it's also on the descriptor to this video. Give it a look, and if you decide to purchase anything there, be it the weather station or anything else, just use the coupon code I want a weather station, and for a limited, normally you'd get 10% off, but for a limited time, which I think has maybe another handful of days to go, you will get
$40 off.
Yes.
That's like 15%.
Yes. And our sponsor of the last, I think, 4 years now, Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. Your go-to place for mulch, topsoil, sand, salt this winter. And, of course, if you got to get your house all prepared in case there's a tropical storm between now and the end of hurricane season. Head over to Omni. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com, Joe.
All right, folks. So back tomorrow night at 7:35, and hopefully by then we'll have this all figured out. Nighty night.
Oh. Are we still on?
Yes.
Just want to list all the people who hit Super Chat tonight.
Oh, please do.
Anthony Sparaccio, Bogies Bees, Leon Probitsky, Chuck Cardillo, Brandon Doherty, and thank you, David Fuller, who hit the tip jar not once, not twice, but a record 3 times.
Okay.
Ta-da.
Now we can say good night. See you
Good
tomorrow
night.
at 7:35. Good night.
Night.